What if I told you that one of the most important buildings in Canada has been sitting empty, neglected, and slowly falling apart for over a decade? And here's the real question: why did no one fix it until now? Because today, something changed. For more than 10 years, the official residence of Canada's Prime Minister, 24, Sussex Drive, has stood abandoned. Not just unused, but deteriorating to the point where many have called it a national embarrassment. Think about that for a second. A G7 country, one of the world's most developed nations, unable to maintain its own Prime Minister's residence. Successive governments talked about fixing it. They made promises. They acknowledged the problem. But nothing ever happened. Until today. Mark Carney has just unveiled a completely different approach, and it's already sparking intense debate across Canada and beyond. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of simply asking taxpayers to pay for everything, which is what many expected, Carney introduced a bold and unconventional plan. A nationwide design competition. And a voluntary fundraising initiative. Yes, you heard that right. Instead of forcing Canadians to fund the renovation through taxes, he's giving them the option to contribute, and even influence how one of the country's most important landmarks will look in the future. Now let me ask you something. Is this a smart, modern approach to public projects? Or is it shifting responsibility away from government? Because that's exactly where the controversy begins. But before we get into the backlash, here's how Carney unveiled his plan.
For years, many have agreed that 24 Sussex should be saved, but it was left to language, and so the damage spread, and the repair costs climbed. And now it's in critical condition. So today, our government is acting to renew this building, restore this institution, preserve our history, protect our heritage and traditions for generations to come, because that continuity matters. A nation is more than the people who live in it today. It includes everyone who came before us and everyone who will come after. Our institutions are how we carry forward what we were given and how we pass that on, at least intact, ideally improved, to those who follow. 24 Sussex Drive is one of these institutions, and we will not let it crumble. We will set it right. Today, we're launching a national design and build competition to restore 24 Sussex Drive, to become, once again, a secure, accessible, and sustainable official residence and a working venue for Canada's future Prime Ministers.
At first glance, the proposal seemed ambitious, even refreshing. A chance for architects across the country to compete. An opportunity for Canadians to feel ownership over a national institution. And a way to avoid political interference in the design process. But the announcement had barely ended before the tone of the room changed. Because the questions that followed, they were sharp, direct, and clearly designed to challenge the entire idea. One reporter, from the New York Times, raised a question that immediately shifted the conversation. Why should Canadians donate to restore 24 Sussex, when hospitals, universities, and charities are already asking for support? It's a fair question. In a time where people are struggling with cost of living, healthcare pressures, and education funding. Why prioritize a building? Was this project really necessary? Or was it out of touch? But instead of backing down, Carney did something unexpected. He turned the question into a much bigger argument. Not just about 24 Sussex, but about Canada itself. About national confidence. About the right of Canadians to decide what matters to them. And in a moment that quickly became one of the most talked about exchanges of the press conference. He essentially told the reporter, politely, but firmly, to stay out of Canada's business. Watch this carefully.
In Austin, the New York Times. What message do you have for hospitals, universities, medical charities in general, about why the government thinks it's necessary to compete against them for donations for this project?
Look, a country, we have to do many things at the same time. We have to build physical infrastructure as a country. We have to reinforce our defense, reassert our sovereignty in the Arctic. We have to invest in medical technologies, which we will be doing. We need to invest in our people, social services. As individuals, the same holds. Decisions in terms of supporting the arts, supporting humanitarian causes around the world, supporting direct charity in your community, and individuals make those decisions, and we very much respect. This is a response. The structure here is a response to incoming interest in supporting this project. Okay, it is a response, and Ian, I know you're from the New York Times, and I'm going to message for Americans. Okay, you can pass this message out. Canadians believe in Canada. Canadians are getting behind this country. Canadians are making decisions with where they travel, where they purchase, who they support, the institutions they support. They're coming together and supporting our country. And we are building this home of the Prime Minister of a G7 country for centuries. That's what we're doing today.
That moment. It wasn't just an answer. It was a message. And it resonated with many people watching. But the questions didn't stop there. Because another reporter brought up something even more fundamental. Canada is a G7 economy. One of the richest nations in the world. So why ask citizens to contribute at all? Why not just fund the entire renovation through the government? It's a question that cuts right to the heart of the issue. And Carney's response revealed the deeper strategy behind his plan. He made it clear, this isn't about money. Canada can afford the project. This is about ownership. About giving Canadians a direct role in shaping their national institutions. About making sure the final result reflects public input, not political agendas. And perhaps most importantly, about doing something different after years of inaction. Here's that exchange.
So I wonder if you could talk about what do you expect the bill to be, or you'll ask the design team to work in, and what does it say that a G7 country like Canada, in developing its own patrimony, is too cheap to pay the full bill, that you got to pass the cap to pay for renovations of a place like this. So what's it going to cost, and why are we going to pay for the thing?
Well, a couple of things. So that was a triple barrel, if I could count. The first one, I've only been inside once when it was functioning with Prime Minister Martin. And I was met Prime Minister Harper in his office, or one of his offices. So I've been inside before. I've been inside once in its current state of disrepair, which is, I mean, it is literally stripped down to the studs and barely held together. I'd like to thank the NCC for at least preserving those options. Thank you, Mr. Nussbaum, for that. So that answers the first part of your question. What does it say? Look, one of the things that has struck me over the course of the last 15 months or so has been the amount of interest in supporting the renovation, a sense of ownership and responsibility of a number of Canadians that this is their house. It's occupied temporarily by whoever is Prime Minister, but it's their house. It's a symbol of the nation, and they want to contribute. And this is a common theme across the country. In recent years, certainly the time I've been Prime Minister, is Canadians want to participate in various ways. It can be choosing a wine from Okanagan over one from California. It's vacationing in Prince Edward Island or the Gaspé instead of going to Florida. All these little decisions are there. It's the interest in participating in, which is why we're setting up the Canada Strong Fund, ability for Canadians to participate directly in the building of the country, in these big nation-building projects. So we're creating that opportunity. It's an opportunity, and coming behind this. And look, as I said to the first question, we have the means to do it. This is a way to have the participation.
Now think about this. For over a decade, nothing happened. No renovation. No clear plan. Just delays, and more delays. And suddenly, there's a roadmap. A timeline. A strategy. So the real question becomes, is this the solution Canada needed all along? Or just another experiment that could backfire? Because once the press conference ended, the analysis started pouring in. And one voice stood out. Political analyst Tom Mulcair didn't hold back. He described the state of 24 Sussex as a national embarrassment. Something that should have been addressed years ago. But more importantly, he pointed out something that many people had been thinking. For the first time in years. There's an actual plan. Not just talk. Not just promises. A real, actionable roadmap. Here's his take.
There's been a lot of criticism that the a G7 nation doesn't have a residence for the Prime Minister to be living in, at least.
It's embarrassing.
At least at this point. So I think that point is well taken. Are you concerned about, and we'll see what Mr. Poilievre says in response to this as well. We heard his comments yesterday. We played them a little bit earlier too, at least at this stage. I feel like it's going to be hard necessarily to be super critical of it, given how this is going to play out. Are there any concerns, though, about who's going to be able to fund this renovation, though? And because the Prime Minister was asked about that earlier too.
Well, I think you always have to be careful. And if it were, for example, well-connected people who have dealings with the government, or if it was a company and so forth, yeah, you'd have to be careful. But I think that funneling it through a foundation that is connected, with Rideau Hall, as the name suggests, we're talking about government properties. It is arm's length because you do have the National Capital Commission in there. They haven't always been the most effective bunch, to be honest with you, but this time Mark Carney's driving it. And this is signature Carney. He likes getting things done. He's looked at this. He's been there for just over a year. He says, okay, this is a national embarrassment. Let's find a plan. And so after just over a year in office, he's announcing his plan. And a year from today, on Canada Day, he'll announce what it's going to look like. Great. I think we're all winners in this.
And that changes everything. Because now, the conversation isn't just about whether the building should be fixed. It's about how it should be done. Who should pay for it? And what it represents for Canada moving forward. Is this about restoring a historic building? Or redefining how national projects are handled? Because let's be honest. This isn't just about bricks and walls. It's about identity. It's about priorities. And it's about whether Canadians are ready to take a more active role in shaping their country's future. So where do you stand? Should the government fully fund projects like this? Or is Carney right, that giving people a choice creates stronger national ownership? Drop your opinion in the comments below, because this debate is just getting started. And here's the part you don't want to miss. This plan, bold as it is, will now face public scrutiny, political pressure, and real-world challenges. Will Canadians actually contribute? Will the design competition deliver something iconic? Or will this become another stalled project? Because one thing is certain. After years of silence, the conversation has finally begun. And what happens next will shape how Canada handles projects like this for years to come. If you found this breakdown insightful and want more deep dives into Canadian politics, Canada-US relations, and major global stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.